Good morning, everyone. Mike and Corey here today. Three exciting topics. I'm going to talk about life events, mainly because I'm thinking about my daughter just graduated from high school last night. So, three-fifths of the way there. My third kid graduating from high school, two more to go. But life events, there's so many of them that affect your financial future that I want to talk about that with Corey a little bit. And then we'll get into the more of the day-to-day stuff, jobs report and S&P profit margins expanding for the top 500. So before we get ready, this is a financial education presentation. You must do your own due diligence on anything that you hear in this presentation. More disclaimer information can be found on ankerstarwealth.com, and the opinions expressed are mine and Corey's alone. So Corey, I had a kid graduate high school last night, and it made me really realize, because I was looking out, there was like, I want to say 220 graduates. And you think about lives changing, big events. So certainly for those 220 kids, they're still kids, they're all like 18 years old. I mean, they are stepping into their financial future. I mean, and that's just one event. For them, that's kind of the start. When you're 18, I know kids go to college, kids still live at home, they're still on the cell phone plan, they're still covered by your insurance, things like that. But in a sense, it is a step. So when you think about financial plans, and I know we talk about stock markets and what's up and what's down, but when you think of an investor, what are some of the key things you think in their lives impact them that are bigger than the stock market?
Yeah, you're asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be family changes, life events. It's going to be those unexpected things that happen to us in our life. It, I noticed, for us, when my wife and I first got married, and I taught her, early retirement, blah blah blah, savings rates, and all this stuff. Um, she was all about it, right? And we had a really high savings rate for a few years before we had kids, like 60, 70% at times. Pretty unnecessarily high, but whatever. That was kind of what our goal was, drove us toward. But but then you have kids and things change. So I would say you don't know the future. That's Mike, it's interesting talking about financial planning. This is something I talk about with clients a lot, is we really have to revisit that every year, because something's going to change every year. It could be inflation, right? It could have nothing to do with us, right?
Mhm.
But something's going to change every year, and that's totally fine. But we're going to want to account for that and model, keep the model as tight as possible to those changes. Maybe unexpected, maybe good, maybe bad, whatever it might be. So
Yeah,
lots of
yeah. I
life
mean, that's
events.
that's the thing. When it comes to coming up with a financial plan, it is not, hey, let's knock this thing out when Corey's 25 years old and saving 60%. It is a year by year adjustment. Some things we know are coming. Guess what? When a kid's born, I know that that's going to change, and that's going to continue on for at least 18 years old, 18 years long, that they're going to be dependent, maybe longer. Um, I know my age. I know there's going to be retirement decisions coming, but the plan doesn't have to be set in stone. It shouldn't be set in stone because, of adjustments. So I thought, let's show, I did a little search to find key life events. Now, I will tell you that the majority, when you search key life events, they tend to err on the negative side. you know. So while and I'll bring this one chart up here. This was life's most stressful event. So of course these tend to err on the negative side. But a kid graduating, a kid being born, so when you look at this, how many of these affect your financial future? And I will tell you that I've dealt, at least recently, with a few people that are in the middle of a divorce. So that's the second one on there. Besides the emotional and psychological situation there, never, I'm sure it's not easy, but there's definitely a financial side to it as well. And these are things, reasons to meet with your financial planner. No, we're not advocating that you should get divorced, but if it's happening, it's something, we need to help with. Death of a close personal or close family member. I like it. Stressful events. Number 7, marriage. Now, I consider marriage a positive thing, but any major change causes stress. So, and then number 10, retirement. Obviously, a lot of times that's what we think of, like, oh, financial plans for retirement, but it's really meant to cover so much more. So, Corey, any of those surprise you there?
I do know when it comes to those stressful events, there's what they call like positive stressors and negative stressors. So the stress around the marriage would be considered a positive stressor where it's a lot to take on, but it's stimulating in a good way, right? And it kind of brings the best out of you. The same thing
We hope.
the same thing with having a child, right? It's a very stressful event. There's a lot that goes into it, but it brings a love and other things into your life that it represents more positive than negative. Whereas, I mean, I'm sure a jail term I see listed on here would probably skew heavy to the negative stressor side.
I'm thinking so. But, and number 8, fired at work. And this will lead into my next topic. But fired at work, laid off, quitting your job for another job. All of these, I mean, technically are kind of the same thing. I mean, fired at work sounds bad. Like, I did a bad job, I got fired. But, layoffs are very common nowadays. There's, really very little lifetime employment. So if no one's employed for life from the same company, guess what? You're either laid off or you quit or something like that. So change in job is another one. And I know that when it comes to investing, if you have a change in job, I know your number one priority is probably to find another job or to start off well at your new job. But just keeping your advisor in the loop on it is important to kind of talk through. So, anyways, there's a lot of different ones in there. I thought was interesting, and stress does tend to be considered a negative thing. And if you pile stress on someone, it really can overwhelm. So, anyways, interesting enough, Corey, I didn't even pay attention to this when I brought it up. The source was from 1967. So interesting. So, I don't know. Maybe now there's.
We can mix in some social media on there now. You're
that's
saying?
What I was gonna say. Having your Facebook account hacked. I mean, maybe that's a new stressor. I don't even know. But anyways.
Mike, true story. 2014, my Instagram got hacked from a gentleman living overseas. He changed my profile picture. He kept all my followers. He kept all my old posts, but he just started posting his regular life to my followers on my end, and I never got that account back. And I just moved on. I never got it. It was kind of a positive one because it got me off of social media, but I think he's still running that account.
I had a kid that got her account hacked. It wasn't Instagram. It was, I don't even know. But she was ready to pay the ransom. That's all to say.
Oh, really?
In the middle of the night. It was in the middle of the night. It's hacked. I need to pay the ransom. I'm like, whoa. Let's not. But anyways, I don't know that turned out.
No, this guy, he didn't want my ransom. He just wanted my followers, I think. And he
Corey, I gotta ask. Since I was not a follower of Corey in 2014, was Instagram even? I didn't even know it was out there that long ago. How many followers did you have?
What?
How many followers did you have?
Oh, come on. I was triple digits, Mike. I mean, I had at least like 150 or something. Yeah.
If I created my own Instagram and it got hacked, I'd be like, yeah, take it over. My wife's the only one that likes it. So
hey,
anyway.
but Mike, it cracked me up thinking because people who were following me, they were seeing these posts of this guy who's living overseas doing random things, riding motorcycles or whatever, and they're probably like, what is this? Like, how did I end up following this? But it was my account that he was running.
I guess funny. I never thought of that before, but
it was crazy.
Okay, so fired at work and job change, that leads us into this topic, which is more daily. So today, and I know this is the first of the job reports, or one comes out today and one comes out Friday. But anyways, the private sector hiring rose by just 37,000. So that's lower than expected, the lowest in 3 years. And what this does is it confirms the economy is slowing. Sometimes these job reports don't exactly jive or match up. But anyways, it was below the forecast. And this is the example of, I'm going to tell you, sometimes we say bad news is good news. So this is the example of, it's certainly bad news. We want the economy to be hiring more people, and that, I mean, that's bad news that it's down. The good news that comes out of this, and the reason why the markets probably were in the green, at least they were a few minutes ago, is this continues to increase the chance the Fed is going to reduce the discount rate and take their foot off the brakes. I know Trump is, hey, you guys are slow to change the rates. And Powell's like, we're waiting and seeing. This is continued confirmation that the economy is slowing. And then with the inflation report that came out a week ago, they all run together a week ago or so, and it was at 2.1%, which was also below. These are the two key indicators that the Fed's looking at to make that decision. They look at inflation, they look at employment situation. So it's the bad news is good news situation. So, so with that, I just wanted to kind of point that number out. That's probably why the markets were up, at least a little bit. And with that, I'll turn it over to Corey, and he'll talk about the, as far as the
S&P profit margins.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is just a look year over year, S&P 500 net profit margins. So you can see the blue bar is 2025 and the gray bar is 2024 Q1. So you can kind of look at the trend. Real estate fell about 1%, maybe higher rates were kind of eating into some of their loans or something. But information technology, financials, communication services, utilities, industrials, healthcare by a lot, consumer discretionary, all increased profit margins. In most cases, at least 1%. Communication services was about getting close to 3%. Healthcare was a full 2%, and the index as a whole was 0.9%. That's right there in the middle, the S&P 500 as a whole. So, we talk a lot, Mike, on this show, and you probably hear it in the news, how equity, things are fully valued out there. Equities are fully valued. There's optimism priced in. There's high valuations. But when companies are putting up numbers like this at the index level, it's justified. Certainly to some extent, high valuations are justified. So that's really it, Mike. I did have one more thing, and this is all from FactSet, so I do want to just say thank you to them for this data. But this is percent of companies with an increase or decrease. I'll just look at one. I know that's a lot. That's like a Christmas tree or something, but I'll just look at one section here. The S&P 500 as a whole, 49% of companies had a decrease in profit margin, and then 51% over that prior year, 2025 Q1 to 2024 Q1, 51% had an increase there. So generally speaking, though, profit margins are increasing. And I know we've speculated that AI could continue that trend of margins increasing. But, that's a little bit of data, right, to kind of see it happen. So anyway, Mike, back to you.
And I'll say when margins increase, I think of it two different ways. One, as a consumer, I say, wow, they're charging me more. I should be paying less. And that's probably the most common way people might think of it. But I want to challenge people, and I challenge myself, think of it as an owner. So if I'm only a consumer and I'm not invested in these companies, then boy, I don't want profit margins increase. I want to keep more money myself. But as an owner of that business, yes, I do want good profit margins. I want AI to reduce costs. I want these companies to make money and grow in value, because guess what? My retirement account, my savings grows in value as well. So two different ways to look at, no, I don't want eggs at $8 a dozen because I don't have a bunch of chickens out here that I'm making money off those eggs. But it's just kind of two different sides of the coin to think about. So
Yeah, absolutely.
with that, we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.